Hello everyone and welcome back to Piano Teaching Tips with Hannah. So today we're going to talk about something very important, sight reading. How to teach sight reading to your students. Now, sight reading, it often gets labelled at that one small moment in an exam where you have 10 marks to stumble your way through a sight reading. And that's how lots of teachers see it. They see it, this little add-on at the end of learning the pieces really well and the scales really well and thinking, oh gosh, I haven't taught sight reading yet. Let's do that in the last lesson. Just throw in a few of them. No, that will not work. Sight reading is a skill, like playing the piano is a skill. So you need to develop sight reading early on. Sight reading is a wonderful thing. It allows you to explore and discover new repertoire. Now, the most important tip I can give to piano teachers is to really work on your students' reading and understanding of musical terms in the first 1 to 2 years of their music education. So I would do this through 2 ways. So through intervallic reading, so that's making them see steps, so next door notes, or skips, which is when you skip a note out, or jumps, which is anything that's not a skip or a step. And it's getting them to sort of see music that way, like the arc of the piece. So that's the first thing. Now, the second thing is to get students used to landmark notes. So that might be middle C in both the treble and the bass clef, and a G in the G clef, or an F in the F clef. I wouldn't really focus on every good boy deserves fruit or every good boy deserves football and face. Of course, you can teach these to your students, but I wouldn't make that your main priority, because then it's a 2-step process when they're looking at a new piece for the first time. If they're trying to think of every good boy deserves, and then they're having to work out what the notes are, they're doing too many things and it's a bit mind-boggling and it's going to put them off instantly. So that's really important, intervallic reading and landmark notes. Now, the second thing is piano geography. So make sure your student really understands piano geography, all the C's, all the D's, all the notes. Now, you'd think your student has the notes on the keyboard, they've got it down in lesson 1. No, you have to keep going over this over and over again. There's loads of games that you can do with children. There's the card racing game, and there's loads of others that you can find online, I'm sure. Okay, so the next thing is just to get the student to read, but read a lot. Think about it. When you were learning to read, cast your mind back when you were learning to read at school, you didn't just read 4 books in a year or 3 books, because 3 pieces you get for the ABRSM and for the Trinity exam board. No, you kept reading and you kept developing your vocabulary, but also, more importantly, your fluency. And it's no different when it comes to the piano or any other instrument that you're playing on. You need to get the students to keep reading. Now, how can you do this? You can make it fun. You could turn it into a challenge. You could get your student to play 1 new piece every single week for a term. And depending how long your terms are, that could end up being 13, 14 pieces, and they're just doing 1 a week. And that way, you're going to really notice them improve, and they're going to get more confident with it too, which is what you want. Now, the next tip I would like to give is to get your student to play with others. So they could accompany at school. They might have the opportunity to accompany a jazz band at school, or to accompany a choir at school or in their local church hall. Or if none of those things are available to the students, they have you. So in the lesson, you can do duets with them. You can play the piano, so you can sit there with them and do a duet with the student. So try and incorporate duets into maybe not every lesson, but every other lesson. And when you're playing duets with your students, be quite strict with them. Say to them, look, you've got to get to the end, or at least to the end of the first section, and don't stop when they go wrong. You can do at certain times, but then make it a game that sometimes you're going to do it and you're not going to stop because they have to work their way through it. So the next tip I would like to give is when looking at a new piece. So just say they've got one of their new pieces that they're doing for this challenge, and how are they going to look at it? Where do they start? Now, I always start with the rhythm first, because the rhythm is almost the most important part of the piece. Sometimes you recognize things just by the rhythm. Just say you changed all of the notes but had the rhythm of, say, Old MacDonald, people might still be able to work it out. But if you did it the other way around, they would not be able to work it out. So start with the rhythm, break it down, keep breaking it down. So with the rhythm, you can get them to count in 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, or maybe you use words. Maybe you use walk for crotchets, or you use running for 2 quavers, or you use tea and coffee for the same, and then you've got like cappuccino for the semi-quavers there. So there's loads of different ways that you can teach the rhythm and get your child or your student to do that. The next thing I would do is to look at the hand position. So where is the hand position? Does it change? What is the arc of the piece? So that's all sort of involved in the shape of the piece, which is something we spoke about previously. And they'll be used to that because that's how they've learned to play the piano with music, the arc of the piece. And then get your student to try and sing it out loud and tell them it doesn't matter if it goes wrong. It's not about getting it right or wrong. It's about discovering and exploring. Keep using these 2 words, and that way they'll find it a fun challenge. I hope I've made my point clear that sight reading is not just that small section in an exam that you have to sort of brush over and not worry about. Sight reading is a skill, and it's something that needs to be developed. So give your students the opportunity to do that by incorporating it into your lessons.